story begins tritely. My friends and I decided to take a break on vacation and went to a village about 5 miles from our city. There are rumors that they allegedly left the village due to the fact that strange and frightening things began to happen there after a girl tragically died there. This girl's house was located 2 kilometers from this small, abandoned village. This trip was our mistake. We were going for a long time. We arrived only in the evening. The most daring of our company, Alex and Dan, suggested that we take a walk around the village. Just a kilometer from this village there was a pine forest, in which we decided to stay for the night. Having set up camp, we decided to build a fire to cook dinner. Having satisfied our hunger, we decided to settle down for the night. I told Alex to pitch the tent, but after rummaging through his travel bag, he said he forgot it. Fine. The girls were indignant in chorus. And what, we now sleep in the open? Here Dan, usually the most calm of all of us, yelled wildly. Yes, calm down you. I noticed that he was very nervous, although this very rarely happens to him, and asked what was the matter. He asked me to move away so that we would not frighten the girls once again. Moving away from the camp, he told me that when we entered the forest, he saw terrible claw marks and blood on the tree. I asked him why the hell he had not told about this before. I could barely calm him down, and then he said, maybe we should get out of here? Something is not clean here. I began to calm him down, arguing that everything would be fine and that we would leave here in the morning, since it was already quite late now. Friend agreed and we went back. Arriving, we found that there were no children and were terribly frightened, but thinking that the adventurous Alex nevertheless dragged his friends to inspect the village, we calmed down and decided to wait for them. It was 11 p.m. when Dan and I began to worry, because they should have already returned from a walk. We decided to go and look for the guys in the village. After searching through the abandoned streets, we decided to return, since neither Alex nor the girls were anywhere. Suddenly, an old woman came out of the house on the outskirts of the village. We were pretty scared. Where did a defenseless old woman come from in this wilderness? Meanwhile, the grandmother was approaching us with an unsteady gait. We froze in fear, waiting for her to turn into a terrible creature and tear us to shreds. But when she caught up with us, she greeted us not very friendly. Get out of here, the old woman hissed. We decided to leave, but stopped because there was no threat, although the words of the grandmother made a strong impression on us. I said get out of here before she finishes you. And yes, it is unlikely that your friends are still alive. At this point, my heart almost burst out of my chest. Realizing that the strange nutty granny could not say anything sensible, we ran. We ran for a long time, falling, knocking our knees into the blood and scratching our faces with thorns. Suddenly, we saw a light in the distance and decided that our missing friends still showed up. Soon we ran out to a large edge, on which stood a huge cottage of 4 floors. Lights were on the 2nd floor and shadows flickered. Deciding that the housekeeping girls decided to get out, we went to the house. Entering it, we saw that the house was very old. There was dust and cobwebs everywhere, and the stairs were destroyed. How could they get to the floor above if the stairs are broken? Exclamation mark. Dan was indignant. This situation pretty frightened him, especially since there could not be any light on the 2nd floor. The broken wiring hung swaying and sparking with current. But we clearly saw that the light was on. We stood like that for about 5 minutes, until some kind of lowing and rustling was heard from the basement. Dan, already shaking, jumped away from the door of the ill-fated basement. I overcame my fear and decided to go down. As soon as I opened the old, creaking door, a musty smell of rot hit my nose. I almost vomited, but still hoping that the guys were sitting in the basement, I went downstairs and lit the moldy walls with a flashlight. And so it turned out, Alex, Isabel and Dasha were tied up in the corner. The girls were crying, and Alex was sitting with eyes wide with horror, but when they saw me, they calmed down. We climbed out of the basement and, after finding Dan, decided to get out of this creepy house. But it wasn't there. To our horror, the door was locked. But how? We left it open when we went in. Dan backed away, but burying himself in something soft, he yelled and rushed towards us. In horror, we turned around and saw this. A huge, hunchbacked monster covered with wool, with 6 limbs and a terrible mouth, from which saliva dripped, burning the floor. Panicked, we rushed to the window, but it turned out to be closed. Apparently, Dan's fear added strength, because the next moment he grabbed a chair and launched it through the window. There was a sound of broken glass and we, feeling free, immediately ran out into the street. The creature, angry, rushed after us. We ran for a very long time, and only when we stopped from fatigue did we find that no one was chasing us. It's rather strange that it didn't kill us, because we were standing next to it, and besides, it took us a while to break the glass. Suddenly there was a surprised cry of Dasha. We turned around and saw that a ghost was standing 7 meters from us. But not just a ghost, but a girl. We were frightened, but we stood rooted to the spot, since we no longer had the strength to run and we were desperate to somehow get out of here. The girl, hanging above the ground for a couple of minutes, went to the outskirts of the forest and led us to the car, but we were in no hurry to leave. I felt that she wanted something from us and wanted to know what exactly. Which the terrified Dan told me, flew around him and disappeared. As I guessed, a body was buried in the ground, at a depth of about 5 meters. Or rather, what was difficult to call even its remnants. We dragged out the poor girl's body and buried it properly. It took us 3 hours, then, shocked and hungry, we left there and never returned. We never understood what kind of monster it was and how it is connected with that girl. It remained a mystery to us. Henceforth, we do not go to all sorts of suspicious places that are notorious and rest exclusively in crowded places.
Thank you for your attention. Subscribe to the channel.